Hello, everyone, and welcome to our session today on unlocking new pathways in early years. I'm Ben from Childcare Marketing. I've got about 7-8 years experience in early years, working with a number of day nurseries in particular. I've also worked with a few childminders, holiday clubs, and out of school clubs as well. So I kind of bring an all-round industry kind of view to the discussion. We're also joined by Mark. Mark, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, my name's Mark. I'm the head of quality at Tiny, which is our childminder agency, overseeing all things quality across our network of childminders.
Amazing. And Kim?
Hi, Ben. It's lovely to be back again. So thank you again for the invitation. I'm Kim. I'm Head of Education and Training at Tiny, working alongside Mark and the other two ladies in the room. And I'm also an ex-practitioner for many, many years in childminding.
Amazing. And just in case anyone hasn't joined us before, Mark and Kim have been absolutely amazing in all of the other webinars that we've done so far. So please watch the previous ones. They've been absolutely incredible, and it's been great to talk about the sector in such a positive way. So if you haven't already, please do go back and watch, and you can listen to myself, amazing Mark, and the amazing Kim as well. We're also joined today by two special guests. We've got Serena and Hannah. Serena, do you mind saying hello to everybody?
Yeah, of course. Hello. I've been in childcare for about 10 years, nearly 2 years in nursery, and then it's been now over a year with Tiny. So yeah, that's me.
Awesome. And Hannah, yourself?
Hi, yeah, I'm Hannah. I'm currently a childminder for 3 years now with Tiny, and I am an ex-nursery practitioner. So
amazing,
yeah,
amazing. Bringing that knowledge and I guess the experience from being practitioners and being able to make that leap into childminding, which is great. And it's actually one of the things that we've been talking about in previous sessions is actually that transition, how easy that transition is. So we'll really dive into that today. And I'm sure, I'm sure we can pull it apart in as much depth as possible, having both of you. So thank you for your time and thank you for joining us today. I think it's going to be a great session, and we'll dive straight in. So the first thing really for us to kind of talk about is the early years sector as a whole. We've spoken about this a lot before. The sector is powered by passion. Okay, that's how I look at it, and that's how I kind of believe the sector is moving forward. Now, I guess there is love for what you do in the sector, but then there's also people that we know and we've spoken to and we've had comment on previous sessions about feeling stuck, feeling underpaid, feeling undervalued in early years. And it's not just in day nurseries, it's across the board. But actually, it's a case of how we can help, and what tips we can give. And with all of the expertise that we have on this call today, I'm sure we can give lots of tips and lots of advice. And actually, if you're feeling like that, on what you can do, and also what options you can explore, and how those new challenges can present themselves to you, and obviously how those challenges can really become positive. So the first thing really to dive in on is kind of the sector at the moment, right? I don't want to dive too much on this particular topic, but Hannah, from your point of view, and I'm going to jump straight in with you, Hannah, because this is actually a really good question. What was your main reason for, I guess, going into childminding?
The biggest thing for me going into childminding was the relationships that I had with the families. In the nursery, obviously being a key worker, I knew my children, but I just didn't feel the relationship was that strong. So since becoming a childminder, I feel they're part of the family now, and that's what I love.
No, brilliant. And I guess in terms of part, I mean, Mark, this is your kind of this is what I call the Mark effect, right? Since the session, one of the previous sessions, Mark raised about how passion has kept Mark in the sector. I guess, Hannah, from your point of view, is that the same thing? Have you felt the passion is what's keeping you and driven you to where you are today?
Oh, absolutely.
No,
Yeah.
brilliant. Mark, if you don't mind, for those of people that haven't joined the session before and don't know what the mark effect is, what I'm talking about, do you mind just telling everybody here that what it is in terms of, from your background and how you've kind of, stayed in the sector and actually developed in the sector as well?
Yeah, and actually, I probably should have said at the beginning, everyone else did, and I left it out. I've worked at Tiny with childminders for the last 3.5 years, but before that, I spent about 12 years in the nursery sector. So hugely passionate about the sector as a whole. And I think what's really interesting to hear you talk about there, Hannah, is the relationships with families. And I was approaching it at the end of my time in nurseries as a manager. But actually, for the practitioners, I heard this all of the time, that actually, because we've talked in previous sessions, for those that haven't seen, about the agency crisis and the recruitment crisis. So the staff that are working as practitioners are juggling everything. And you have to decide that actually, is it best to have your experienced practitioners and staff and teachers that know the children with the children, or handing over and talking to the parents? And you have to make a bit of a decision there. So often the handovers, you're not building that relationship because you haven't got time to stop and talk and build that really strong partnership and knowing what the brothers, sisters, mothers called and where they're going on holiday. And I think that's such an important part of when you work in early years. And I think echoing what you said, Hannah, that relationships is the best bit. And I've shared some stories in previous sessions about families coming up to you and saying, "Oh my goodness, look who it is." That the song that we've been singing every night for the last 14 years that you started when you were just 19. So I think, it is those moments that bring you life and bring you joy. And I think that without over talking about the challenges, the challenges that definitely took me away is not being able to do those bits anymore. And that left me feeling, I guess, really alien within my own sector, because I was no longer getting the enjoyment of feeling like I was making that impact, because even as a manager, I was stirring the pasta whilst on the phone, whilst trying to juggle the lunch shifts and make sure my team had a lunch break. I wasn't doing the things about relationships with children, relationships with families. So very much, I think a lot of us stay in it for the passion and because we care about it. But I always try and not be too ideological. And I think the reality is, for a lot of us in the sector, through this very challenging period and this, childcare hopefully becoming more of an important topic to be talked about now, and hopefully funded better, and we all keep everything crossed as we move forward, that we can start doing the things we enjoy. Because as soon as you stop doing the things that you love, it starts to not, you don't get the feedback that you need to keep that passion alive when you might not be getting the highest wages that you can ever have.
I agree. Ben, I would just add to that, you started by sort of asking or talking about practitioners being passionate and they love what they do. And I think that's always a really good starting point for us to think about, what we do love in the sector. And let's just kind of remind ourselves of why we do what we do, because the rest of the world don't get it, do they? If you're working in early years, you've got to have a certain mindset, because it's what gets you out of bed in the morning. And I think it would be really good for us to remember what we do really well, why we love it, why we enjoy it. And not even Hannah's smiling at that bit, because you get kind of triggered by it in a good way, that actually, this is why we do it. And for everybody, it's a different reason, isn't it? For Hannah, it was, the relationships with parents. For somebody else, it's the freedom. Somebody else, it's working. I spoke to somebody the other day who was just a baby room person all over, and all of the experience and knowledge that she had done. She's with us now, but just all of that knowledge was just incredible. And I think we should start with that strengths-based approach and think about, what do we love? What do we do well? What do we celebrate ourselves a little bit more? And think about all the things that are working well for us in the sector, because we are early years. And what would we like more of? What would we like more of? Whichever part of the sector we are in would be a really good starting point, I think, to think about, okay, that's what we're doing well. What else do we need, and where else can we go with it? And how can we strengthen ourselves as a sector, as opposed to sections, but just as a strong sector going forward, supporting each other, I think is a really good starting point.
It's got to be unified, right? And I think
100%.
The thing that's been lacking for years is any kind of, I guess, a unified approach.
Yeah, that's right.
I've been there with day nurseries, and day nurseries and what they want to achieve is different from childminders. What childminders then feel forgotten, childminders then feel on the back foot. Day nurseries feel on the back foot with changes that happen with obviously nurseries coming in within schools. Everything within the sector at the moment it's still so fragmented.
Yeah,
and there still needs to be work done to be able to bring the sector closer together.
I agree.
And we're not in competition. Right?
No.
This is the big thing. I work in marketing, right? And I take pride in studying data. And I'm a bit obsessed with it, a bit of a geek. The thing with it is, it's like when we're looking at the data and we're looking at, someone's not choosing a childminder over a day nursery for different reasons. They're not looking at it from the point of view of, I'm going to go to a day nursery or I'm going to go to a childminder, and I'm looking at both options like directly. It's almost the case of they've made their mind if they're going down that route, or they've made their mind if they're going down that route. They don't compare the two. And it's the same with holiday clubs. It's the same with out of school clubs. I'm using one example there, a bit narrow, but across the board, there needs to be a bit more of a
I agree.
Just add in, just going to say, adding in that there are sufficiency issues. We need more childcare spaces. We're not a market that is half empty. So actually, we know we need more of them. So the whole sector is better by having more of us and better quality of us. So let's support each other and champion each other and share information that's helpful for each other.
If we could just put all of those groups and pick the best from one and the best from the other, then we'll get the best childcare we can, because there are amazing parts about a nursery, and there are amazing parts about childminding or nannying. If we could only put it all together, unify it, then it'll be perfect.
Can you imagine that? Can you imagine a community where you have childminders, nurseries, nannies all working together, supportive, and actually myth busting for one another? Because there's lots of things that the press report about in the nurseries that we know are not true of all nurseries, don't we? But actually, we should stand alongside them and actually myth bust for any parents that are coming. And likewise, it would be lovely to work in partnership with nurseries where they know their local childminders and they work in partnership, and they know actually we don't have spaces for this, or we can't do but actually we do know somebody that is in your locality that we work in partnership with. That's what a community looks like, doesn't it? And that's how we serve the sector. That's how we strengthen everything, and then we close the gaps on all the negative messages, and we can we learn from each other. Look, exactly. What a great space. Definitely.
And Serena, apologies, I haven't actually asked the same question to you in terms of your journey. If you don't mind, just for the audience, just tell us about your journey and what your main driver was.
My main drive were two. One, just like Hannah, it was the what you have with the families, getting to know them properly, because I started as a nanny, and that's you're part of the family, literally. And then I moved away from London and I went to Oxfordshire, and I thought, I don't know anyone and I would like to try and work in a nursery, so let's give it a go. And then after that, I had my daughter, and so that was the other reason that brought me into childminding, because I wanted to spend time with my daughter and see her grow. And that really put the two things together, because you are part of the family with the family that you're working with, but from your own home and making your own decisions.
No, it's fantastic. It's fantastic. I think it's really good, because I said this to somebody earlier on, and we're just talking about the sector as a whole, and why people come into the sector and why people start businesses, either day nurseries or childminding businesses. And the range of kind of responses we got was huge in terms of where we got to. We sort of mapped it out. There's about 100 different things. But the two most important things were either the parents or actually the family, and the family being the parents you're serving, but also your own family, and then the passion. And that for me just seems like, for both yourselves, it seems like that's the same for you, which is great. And that's it's very much something that I think in the sector, we we like to moan a lot, I think, as a sector as a whole, right? And this is, if you look at Facebook groups, if you just look at, there's a lot of tension in some places. And I think the big thing to recognize here is that you can still stay in the sector if you're feeling burnt out, if you're feeling like actually the role you're in isn't quite right for you. You can adapt, you can go down the route of, in your cases, child minding. You can take a sidestep and look at, administration or management roles, or even marketing roles, within a nursery, or within a business like an out of school club, activities club. You're still involved in the sector, but actually, you can. There are other options. It's not just a case of being in the role you're in and not feeling like you can progress. We had a few comments through, which one of them actually is really fitting to this, which is, I'm really burned out currently. What do you suggest? And I think, that's it kind of, I think we've answered the question already. But I guess, Serena, from your point of view, I mean, did you ever feel burnt out in working in a nursery at all, or was the main driver for you actually just family?
Yeah, I was feeling burnt out after a while, because it was very. I loved, the whole part, feeling part of a team, working with the children. But then I always remember that sentence when I first started, and I didn't have any key children, because you're just learning and you need to get to know everything. And I remember one of the practitioners coming to me and saying that she was there for years and years, and she said, "Oh, it's so nice to see you interacting with the children." I was like, what do you mean? Like, that's what we're here for, right? To interact with children. And she's like, no, because you then get the key children and you get all of the paperwork, and then you don't get to interact with the children as much. So I was like, oh, what am I getting into? And then that's when I started to feel burnt out, because of the amount of paperwork that then was taking the fun and the love and the passion that you have with what you do. So yeah, that was the big part.
Yeah, and I guess from the transition to where you are today, what's it? What I guess, one question I actually never asked Mark and Kim in any of these sessions is, what is it actually like to work with Tiny?
Is always talking. Who are you asking to me, Ben?
What's it like? Because obviously you say the paperwork was a nightmare. Obviously, what's it like now? Like, obviously, it's your own business, so exactly. What's it actually like?
Well, now you don't have anyone, like, you don't have a manager that comes to the end of the month and says, you're not leaving at 5 o'clock as you're thinking today, because you need to stay here and doing all your next steps, or you need to finish all your 2-year-old's checks. You don't have that pressure on you. You know what you have to do, and luckily the government is helping you as well, with saying that those paperworks are not mandatory now, but there are still nursery where they make you do it, whether it's you have to, you don't. They just want you to do it, and you got all of this. So for me now, it's even my own family as well, because I finish at 5:30, but not really. I got my daughter to look after. It's a breeze. Like, I don't dread going to work. I mean, I don't go anywhere. It's home, but I don't dread work.
No, it's fantastic. I mean, we've had a few comments through whilst you've been talking there as well. Which some people, I feel stuck in my role. Do I bite the bullet? I think there's definitely I guess thought out there in terms of people looking for new opportunities, and I think you've raised a really good point there in terms of actually you're working in it's your business. You're working in your home. You haven't got a manager. You can almost, to an extent, you can do what you want, basically. Obviously, within reason. But
and you can't say that in front of Mark.
In a general, in a working sense. Maybe I should be quiet now. But no, I guess it's fantastic. And Hannah, for your point of view, were you ever in that position, feeling burnt out and feeling like you've got to make a move, or was your transition a bit different?
Mine was actually a bit different. I was working in a nursery only 3 days, and then started doing childminding 2 days a week. So I guess I did feel the burnout in I was working both, and it was stressful. But the move over, it worked, it flowed, it happened at the right time, and it worked.
And I would just add
Yeah.
that Serena and Hannah, they do still have things that they record. Obviously, there's all the statutory things that they record, and they still have learning journals and all of those other things, but they know how to navigate that themselves. If they've got 2-year-old checks to write, they can just put that into the day where it suits them, and they time manage their own day, in other words. So it's not necessarily that the requirements aren't there, but they navigate it in a different way. I just want to ask a question, Ben. Is burnout the same now? And this is really to the audience, I guess. Is burnout the same now as it was around pre-COVID and COVID times? And has there been any change? Because I know that everybody went on that kind of well-being trend for a while. What does it look like now? Are people really still focused on supporting and having a really good and healthy culture at work? I think we can't get away from the fact that early years is hard work, full stop. Full stop, is it? It's graft, isn't it? And none of us kind of come here to, expecting anything less, but it's how we manage that. And I remember reading a quote once that burnout, something about leadership has a greater impact on burnout than working hours. And I think all of us have worked loads of working hours, but actually your working environment, the people that you're working with, and the type of leadership you have has a greater impact on your well-being and your burnout than any amount of hours, because we are givers, aren't we? And we want to kind of do well and all of those things. So I wonder what it looks like now and how people are feeling, and is it better? Has there been changes? There's changes to how much paperwork is required, all of that. What does it look like now?
While we just get a few of those comments in as well, I just add in, just to reiterate all of those points. The EYFS did change to say that paperwork shouldn't be burdensome, and actually the whole inspection framework has switched to being much more around, do you know your children? And during an inspection, the inspectors should be asking you about your children, which is much better. Do you know them? Do you know where they are? It doesn't matter what you've got on paper. And that's very much the approach we take. So actually we say that parents, from a professionalism point of view, should have regular updates about what's happening in the setting, but actually how childminders choose to do those observations, whether they're just pictures and a couple of words, or whether they're longer observations, that's down to the childminder, providing it doesn't take them away from the children. And I think while people talk about burnout, I think it still is very much an issue. And I remember doing horrible things where we tried to do some wellbeing stuff to put people on longer days with half days. And the amount of times on that person's half day, I had to go to them and say, I'm really sorry, you can't go today because I'm in ratio, the chef's in ratio, and someone's called in sick. And I think actually there is some really practical issues. But I think if I'll beat the drum I've beaten a few times in the last few weeks, which is that if you're a manager, think about, or an owner, think about what you're doing and whether it's needed by your team and whether it's adding impact, or whether you're just doing it because you always did. Or if you're a practitioner and a teacher and you're not sure why you're doing as much paperwork as you still need to, look up the EYFS, go and find what it says in the legislation and ask that question to your management team in a non-confrontational way. But, say, I understand the requirements have changed. And why are we still doing so much? Is there not more time that we could spend with our children? So I'd kind of give a solution back and say for people to try and open those conversations with each other to see if you can make maybe a little impact in your own local environment to make life a bit better and a bit more enjoyable and give the children more interaction.
Yeah, 100%. I think, going back to, I guess, my journey as well, right? In marketing, right? And this is it's completely separate from early years. But the first year of starting up the business, I was burning myself out every month and literally working too many hours, completely burning myself out. It's my own fault, right? I had no manager. I was burning myself out completely. And what I found is, as soon as I learned to become a better leader it enabled me to be in a position where I was able to actually reduce my burnout massively, but also be a leader to myself. And it sounds really weird, but it's true.
Yeah.
In the case of, you know, setting aside the time and putting those boundaries in place. And it enabled me then to be in a position where, yeah, A, I was less ill all the time. B, things were actually, you know, my positivity was higher, and I was more productive. And actually, overall, it made my environment better. And I speak to a lot of day nurseries, and the biggest thing that I talk about is empowerment, and we've talked about it in the sessions as well. But if you're a day nursery owner and you're thinking, you know, how can I make things better? Just empower your team as much as you can. You know, give them more freedom, give them the ability to make business decisions. And I know it sounds a bit like, whoa, you know, I like to do things how I like to do them, but it's true. You know, give a voice and actually enable that voice to come through. And if, you know, there are things you may have to do as a business that are difficult decisions. And as Mark, as you say there, you know, in terms of someone having a half day and you tell him you've got to work full day, they are difficult things. But then you've got to look at, okay, that happened on that occasion to that person. How now can I make them feel better? You know, how can I now give them something in return for helping me out in that occasion or helping out the business in that occasion? And I think we are in a very, I mean, Kim, going back to your question, I guess we're in a space where a lot of early years staff, you know, from a starting point, come in. We're quite young in general, okay? You know, we're coming in terms of like the cycle, and we did a study on this, and in terms of data, you know, 80% of new practitioners coming on board are about 22, 21, and it's a very young audience. You know, probably first, if not just about second job. So it's not a case of having a really, really, really business-focused experienced workforce coming on board from day one. So anybody in a management or leadership position, you know, do all you can to help, you know, mentor, coach. If someone wants to develop, as you know, Serena and Hannah, you have, in terms of, you know, you've gone through being practitioners, and then you've gone through actually being childminders. You know, actually, having an environment where they're helping you on that journey and actually guiding you on that journey as well to become a childminder, even if it goes against what they want. It's better for the sector, because it brings more value back through. It brings empowerment to the team. It motivates your current team, and really is one of those things. It's like, it's a win-win-win. You can't, you know, I don't see any negative with that approach. And whilst we're talking, sorry, there was a comment that came through, which is, I don't think it's burnout or just being so busy due to management. And I think, you know, again, it comes back to, you know, speak to your management. You know, see if they're willing to listen, and see if they're willing to talk to you. Because I think, Mark, you raised this point as well, that if you speak to your management, if you speak to your team and work together and try and actually come up with solutions as a community, you're actually it's going to develop a better environment than if you just sit there and let it happen.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that we keep everything, and actually little things that I do, like getting the nursery practitioner to plan the risk assessment for a trip that they were going to do out to the local park, and like watching how that flourishes, because they've never done a risk assessment before. So it's not like, go and do the risk assessment. It's like, right, do you want to see how I do the risk assessment? Like, and just making that person feel like they've got a role. And I remember doing that for local trips to the park, and this person ended up running a whole project where they were growing their own plants and flowers and selling them in the local supermarket across the road, like with the children using real money. And this all came from just talking about making a risk assessment. And I think we almost de-skill people by keeping everything ourselves, but actually give those little bits out so that it becomes, everything's a nice shared responsibility. People understand the challenges and the logistics and what you're facing too. It's such a simple solution, but makes people feel like they are part of something more than just themselves.
Yeah, I agree. And, you know, one question I always used to ask when working with nurseries, you know, we would always ask, what is it like for a child here? But I would always ask, what is it like for a practitioner? You know, what is the health of the culture, the well-being? Because it needs to be a good enabling environment for the practitioners as well, for them to be able to thrive as well. So I think that's something that we always need to still go back to and think about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think overall, you know, we've covered very much here today, you know, leadership, independence, flexibility, and also I think probably the term is innovation, right? We talked about other things you can do and how you can kind of innovate, reignite. I don't know the right word for it, but things you can do to really empower yourself and empower your, maybe empowerment's the right word. Empower yourself and empower your team and empower the people that are around you as well, just to enable you to be in a better environment overall. And it's not just early years, okay? We are talking about in general. No matter what role you're in, no matter what industry you're operating in, if you're listening to this, the one thing I would say is look at how you can empower your team and look at how you can potentially empower yourself by actually just talking to your team and working together. So if it's okay, we'll now move on to the Q&A. We've got a fair few questions to get through, and what I'll do is, if it's okay with everybody in the session, we'll try and distribute the questions as much as possible, and we'll see how we go. I've got roughly around 20 questions. We'll pick kind of from the top, and if anybody wants to put any questions in now, please feel free to do so, and we'll try and get through them. I'll try and obviously pick, if you're asking the same question, we'll always try and make sure we're picking questions that are different as well as we go. So starting from here, we've got one which is, I want to move into management. Is becoming a nursery manager a good option, or is childminding better? Now, obviously very, very, very tricky potentially to answer, but Serena, can we go to you first on this one?
Okay. I actually remember when I started working in a nursery, they were asking you, I can't remember if it was, in my interview, they asked me like what my end goal was. And I think I remember at the time saying, I want to be a nursery manager. Turns out it never even crossed my mind most of the time by the end of my career in the nursery. Because all I was thinking about, going back to earlier, was to have a really good relationship with the families, and I never thought that being stuck in an office was the thing that was going to help me to achieve that. So then, actually, I thought about going into childminding because I thought, well, I can be the manager of myself, and being part of something that for me was bigger.
So very much the independence and the leadership part of things, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is key.
Can I just add to that, Ben?
Yeah, go
to that both Serena and Hannah are part of my community coaches group. So we have at the moment about 20 community coaches that look after big groups of childminders in their area. So Serena is in Oxfordshire, and Serena, how many have you got in your group?
About 20.
Got about 20 childminders that she coaches, looks after, leads, supports, provides guidance to. So she's still getting that opportunity to develop her leadership skills, to share good practice, but it's from a very different perspective, but still obviously getting the opportunity to do that. And we work together as a team of coaches together, and there's leadership training, there's rewards and all of that side to it as well. So both Hannah and Serena are in my community coach groups as well, so they don't sort of lose out on that aspect of it.
No, fantastic. And I guess in terms of the going back, I guess the principle of the question then, in terms of from the point of view of moving into management, Mark, from your point of view, building on Kim's, building on the kind of the what you do at Tiny, and obviously with the community coaches and everything else. I mean, what I guess from your point of view, Mark, from being in early years for so long as well, what would you say in terms of answer to this question?
I think I can't answer for this person which is better, because I think that is very personal. And I would say what I would say about being a nursery manager, I was a nursery manager in lots of different types of settings. So I was a nursery manager in a 32 place nursery that had 2 rooms and was very involved with families and was in covering ratios all day, every day. It was, there was a much smaller nursery to run logistically. And it also very much is about the nursery group you work for. There are some nurseries now, and I work for a wonderful organisation called the London Early Years Foundation, which has central hubs of admin support, so that as a manager, you can be out in the setting leading practice and pedagogy. So, it depends which nursery you choose and what you want. If you want to go into a large scale nursery and work more in operations and strategy, then that's possibly the route. If you want to be really involved with the children and really understanding families and teaching and still close to that element, you'd want a small nursery, or to be a childminder where you get to do that yourself every day. So I think it very much depends on what you're looking for going forward. And there are other routes to management as well. There are learning and development roles. There are, as Kim said, the community coaches work with us. But we also have consultant teams that are people that have got some level of leadership experience in early years, but they might not have been a manager yet, to come in and do support in going out and doing visits. So there's lots of different routes to take. I can't tell you which is better. I think it very much depends on your own aspirations, I guess.
No, it's a really, really fair, balanced approach. I think. For anybody that's kind of, and I think we have covered this previously as well. It's if you're looking to transition into another role, and you're thinking, oh, is management for me? It's a case of what sort of management, and that's a really big question, because I've always thought that, my eyes, when I was years and years ago, I always thought, oh, management means I'm in charge of everybody and that's what I do. And in reality, it's not always the case. You can have people that are still above you. You can still be managed yourself. It doesn't mean that you're necessarily self-employed or have your own business and you're at the top of the tree. It doesn't mean that at all. So I think anybody kind of, whoever asked that question, I guess in particular, it's a case of, if you're looking to be in a position where, you want like ultimate flexibility, and to be in a position where you're managing your own business, then of course, childminding is probably the better option. But if you're looking to be part of an existing business and help develop that further, there may be, obviously there probably will be an owner that's potentially making the final decisions and everything. Then obviously being a nursery manager and overseeing your team, potentially a big team in some cases it could be, is a good route for you. So I think there's both sides of that. I think is quite important to note. We've had a question through on finance, and I don't always like diving in on finance, because it's one of those areas that it's always very difficult, because it depends on location, depends on role, depends on responsibilities. There's a lot of factors to it. But we've had this one through, which is, how much can I earn as a childminder? I get 40k as a manager. Now, obviously, you're earning at the moment 40k, which is okay. If you're happy there in terms of earning that money, that's great. But obviously, we've got a range of childminding experts here. Kim, do you want to tackle this one first, and we can?
My favourite topic. Thank you. We shared last week or week before, whenever it was we were here, we shared this income calculator, didn't we? We kind of just showed people, we did do it, didn't we? We kind of showed what the income looks like and how we go about it. So as a general rule of thumb, people coming into the industry new, not experienced, and not kind of, had lots of experience with working with families, developing a business. We focus on, depending on their own goals as well. But starting, we want to get people to their first 30,000 as a practitioner. That's the first thing, to just get your basics. But obviously now with the funding, that's slightly different, and that's a lot easier to achieve a lot quicker. So I've done a calculation with somebody yesterday. In fact, no, I done it at lunchtime today, because we had a webinar for about 80 people that were thinking of going from employed to self-employed. So we just went through the figures, and I've got them up here. Looking at taking on 3 children. So childminder ratios are up to 6 children, 3 under 5s, 3 5 to 8. So I really love playing around with numbers and try to give people the best balance, i.e. work part-time, have a good income, be with your family. Like, all of it. But you've also got opportunity for growth. You can go more full time, you can take on more children, you can take on assistants, you can become a community coach, you can become a consultant and work in Mark's team. So there's lots of career progression, but as a starting point, we want to work on this. And what we done was we looked at the under fives, and so we put 2 under twos for funding and 1 2-year-old for working parents. We've done it at 30 hours only, no additional hours. I hope I'm not jargoning to people, but just working 30 hours, no additional. So 1, it's affordable to parents. I've done it term time only, so you get to have school holidays off with your children, 5 days a week, and then it depends on the borough that you're working in. So I put in the figures for the borough that the person that I was talking to in the session, and the salary comes out at 56,400.
Wow.
And that's just working 3 children, 3 funded children. That's
Wow.
not including, your after schoolers if you wanted to do that. That's not including if you wanted families. If families wanted to do 40 hours, 50 hours, so they'd pay the additional fees on top of that. And then obviously you've got all of the other opt-in payments that they can make or not. So with this calculator, I use this with everybody all of the time because I think it's really important for people to understand your business model. And if you are considering working for yourself, or just understand how simple it is. Could you enroll 3 children? Yes, you could. What would happen if you love the management side and you want to take on staff and build a successful, high quality setting and provide affordable childcare to families? Because I'm not promoting, wealth by any means. I'm talking about affordable childcare, quality childcare in your community, but actually you having a really good home life balance, doing what you love, but navigating it in a really sensible way. You can go higher and higher, and sometimes the figures are wild. They're wild, but it's got to be based on quality. We're not encouraging people to say, right, take on an assistant straight away, because you can have 4 adults in one childminding setting, space permitting and all of the other things. But we're not encouraging you to do that from day one, because if you're new to the sector, what do you know about quality? What do you know about education? What do you know about safeguarding? How are you going to ensure that you are providing really good quality? All you're going to do is get not a good name. So it's about making sure that, one, yes, you do meet your income goals and more, and that you've got a balanced life, but you've also got the inspiration and motivation to achieve some of these other things and develop and grow. And that, for me, is about being a sustainable business that you can grow over a period of time and watch children and their families grow from there, as well as all the other opportunities. So, yeah, that's kind of starting point for income. So
I guess you got to balance it with with obviously earnings is one thing, right? And that's obviously for some it's key. I think for everybody it's key to an extent. But also you've got to balance that then with your personality and your lifestyle as well, which I guess is probably the most important part out of the two potentially, when you're looking at it from that point of view.
Yeah, but I think, Ben, let's be real, financial well-being is key. We love what we do. Everybody loves what they do in early years, but you cannot live on goodwill.
Yeah.
You cannot. Financial well-being is important. Yeah. And I think it's really important for people to have the opportunity to look and see and understand, how can I meet my own personal life goals? I want to have a holiday this year. I'd like to start a family. I'd like to, how am I going to achieve some of those things doing what I love?
Yeah.
And it's good for people to have the opportunity to look, to explore, to believe there are options where they are now, career development with study, with education, with promotion, or in the sector in other areas. That's what I believe.
No, I completely agree. I think it's key, isn't it? And I think we're getting a lot of questions through actually, which a lot of comments through, sorry, which are all kind of associated. And I think there's there's one in here particular, and conscious of time. Hannah, I'm going to fire this one over to you because I haven't asked you one yet, and I think it's potentially a really fitting one as well. So I'm currently working as a nursery practitioner, looking to set up my own childminding business. How financially can I juggle the two? What Kim says sounds absolutely amazing. Thank you. What are your thoughts, and how can I best achieve this?
Well, I don't really know where to begin. I guess financially was a massive reason why I started childminding on the days that I didn't work at the nursery. I wanted to boost my income. So that was my biggest push. Sorry, what was the question? How did you juggle the two? What was the I guess what they're trying to say is the transition. What was the transition like from being working as in the setting to then transitioning to being a childminder? How did you manage it in terms of time?
I can help answer that one as well. If Hannah, if you want to go, that's fine. But because we've just done a webinar on it at lunchtime today. So,
okay.
Yeah.
No, so I guess for me, it was a very quick transition. I planned for it to take a bit longer, but it flowed. The interest was there, and I was just enjoying it, and it was just the childminder side of it became more me. So I just went for it.
Good. And I guess time to being a child. I mean, what I'm going to ask the floor here, right? And any of you, whoever's got whoever feels they can answer this in the best way, please just shout out. How I guess if you're currently working in a setting, how do you manage kind of doing that and then becoming a childminder at the same time in terms of your time and the time and effort you've got to put into being a childminder? I'm sure it's not necessarily easy, but could you do both jobs at the same time? I guess is what the comments are kind of indicating.
I think the good thing about childminding is you get to choose the hours you want to childmind. So actually, if you've got a situation where someone's working in the nursery Monday, Tuesday, or Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and you want to start building your pipeline and your business first, then absolutely, of course, you've got to do all the tasks to get registered. But actually, I think that's the bit that we and Kim, you do a lot of this work with the childminders is getting them business ready. Because actually, I think the big question about nursery manager or childminder, the big difference here is you're actually nursery owner. Childminder owner. If you think about it, you're running your business. So, for us, I think that's the learning curve is understanding all of those business bits. And actually, some people that works really nicely to do kind of a phase. You've got your nursery, you've got enough income there to keep you going. And then you've also got this business that you can build up. The only thing we see sometimes it doesn't go quite too well is where it's too sporadic. Hannah, you talked there about doing it really consistently, that you were going to grow this business. So I think if you're going to do it, go for it and have a plan for how long you want to do, rather than you do an hour or two here and an hour or two there, because you're never then going to get your childminding business to the place it needs to be. Hannah's a great example of someone that plans to phase, and that's how it worked once you realized you had good income coming in. So it's a great option for people that want to do it in a slightly more phased way.
I think it also depends on your qualification, because for me, I am massively grateful to the nursery I work at, because I came in as unqualified. They put me on a course for level 3. I zoomed through because I wanted to do it as quick as possible. So that obviously when I then decided to become a childminder, it was a lot quicker. But obviously instead, if you are working in a nursery but you are unqualified, then you need to kind of know that it's going to take you a little bit longer, because you need to still have your qualification to then become a childminder.
Just on that point, actually, so we don't have a requirement for a qualification for childminding. We actually have 2 routes that you can go down, and we actually haven't mentioned this at any point in these webinars. That's triggered something in me. The Train with Tiny, when people inquire to us, we have the standard pathway, which is people that don't have much experience or might have none. We also have an experience pathway, which is for those like the guys that are with us today that actually have loads of knowledge around early years and therefore might be able to do that journey quicker. They might not need to do all of our training that we
that's it.
do in all of our assessment quizzes, because actually you've got some of that pre-existing knowledge. So all that learning you had, Serena, from your last nursery, you know, for any really experienced practitioners, we do have this experience pathway, which is a fast-tracked pathway to get people to registration slightly quicker.
Oh, brilliant. Brilliant.
Ben,
Well,
I'll just add to that as well that you can, we do train people. So as I said, we had this webinar today that talks about how to go from being employed to self-employed as a childminder, and we provide them with a strategy so that they have a launch open date, that they're able to market, you know, see families, do settling in, and then hand in their notice so that there's no break in their salary and income that's coming in. So that's something that obviously we have to look at and support people with, because you need to have that continual flow of income, and that's what we help them to do.
I think the transition. Oh, sorry.
No, go for it.
I was just thinking the transition, like Hannah did, and myself, from a nursery to being a childminder is perfect, because you already know all your families, and just the, you know, word of mouth of you or how you are with the children, and just goes around your town, your village. Like I used to be the key person of one of this little girl, and then mum got me, like we got each other in town, and we started talking. I was, oh, you're a childminder now. Oh, Mum, I'm pregnant again. So she really wanted me to look after her other child. So he's going to start now in January. So, you know, they know you already. So so much easier. Like it's, I don't know. I've never struggled to find families because they know me.
Yeah, that's it.
It's fantastic. And Kim, we've had a few people whilst we're talking just there. How can they get in touch with you?
You can get in contact with Tiny. You can get in contact with us at Tiny. You can find us online. I think, Ben, you were going to kind of provide a link for people to
anybody watching today will send on the follow-up email, we'll send all the details through. But I think if you visit is it tiny.co is the website?
Yeah, .co. That's it. Not co.uk. Tiny.co. You'll find us online, and send a message through. Come and talk to one of our advisors. Get in contact with us. We'd love to talk to you. I think that's the thing. We just want to have a conversation, find out, give yourself an opportunity to design your life wherever you are. If you're staying in the nursery, you know, understanding what it is you want to achieve, and just, I think, taking back some of that joy again, you know, in early years that, you know, we are good at having and doing, and just reminding ourselves of why we're there and enjoying ourselves. So yeah, I'd love to have conversations, and I think Mark or somebody has just shared something in the chat, so I think, Ben, if you can share that.
Share that, everybody.
There's a really quick link in there in the start page just to get a call booked with either Kim or one of the team, and they're really great at working out whether it's the right fit now and talking you through all the practical steps. That probably they do a much better job of that than I think I do.
Yeah, we've also had lots of more questions through, and if you are watching and I haven't managed to answer your question today, I do apologise. We will go through the questions. If you've put your name and you haven't gone anonymous, we can obviously contact you directly. If you have gone anonymous, on the follow-up email after this session, we'll make sure we try and include as many of the responses to your questions that have come through throughout the session today. So thank you all for watching. It is all we've got time for, I'm afraid. But I hope you join us again soon. And I'm just going to share some of the fantastic comments that have come through. You know, Serena, you've got some fans. There we go. Loads of thank yous. Tiny sounds great. Brilliant session. I mean, thank you all for your time today and joining us. Mark, Kim, Hannah, Serena, thank you. It's been a great session, and I hope everybody watching has enjoyed it. And if you want to join us for future sessions, please do sign up and subscribe to the Tiny YouTube channel. A lot of content's on there, and we also share everything via the earlyyearswebinar.com webpage as well, which you can also sign up to. So thank you, everybody, and see you.
Thank you.